Hello, I'm Ed Rabyd, otherwise known as the Rabyd Atheist, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. You're free to like or dislike the video, so please feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell so that you get all the content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos as much as you like. This is Friday's video. This is week 10. Can you believe it? I didn't ever think that I would get this far in this YouTube channel, but I've come to like it. It's been a good substitute for my former pulpit in church, and I've come to kind of enjoy getting on and, talking a little bit. I'm much more comfortable talking like this than I ever am personally. Personally, I'm always a little bit nervous, just kind of the way I am. But put me in front of a microphone and yeah, I'll talk your ear off about all kinds of subjects. And this YouTube channel has kind of given me my pulpit back, I suppose. And so, yeah, I've enjoyed it. This is week 10. I think at last count, and this is Thursday, I'm recording this video a day early because I won't have time tomorrow to record it on time. So I'm going to record it today. But at last count, as of today, I have 19 subscribers, which is up quite a bit. I think last week I had 14. I picked up like 5 this last week, I think. And I want to appreciate that. My view count is up to 800 and something hours of view. I've lost track. I'm not going to really, I'm fairly certain that the hours of viewing will be fine by the time I reach that monetization stage. I really have come to realize that the biggest issue of getting monetized on YouTube is getting subscribers, which is why I've kind of gone forward with a lot of other things. Friday's videos tend to be about comments. I didn't have a lot of comments this last week as relates to the content. I did have a comment from DY Interiors. I'm assuming that's do-it-yourself, which kind of, that name alone kind of tells you that there's a lot of people out there that are interested in what atheists have to say, and some camaraderie with their fellow atheists whose own YouTube channels may have nothing to do with atheism, or whose own YouTube channels may have, they just are interested in other side topics besides what their main topic is. So, the atheist community is probably a lot of solid, good people that you need to realize at that point is, they're good people and they're not, doing evil shit. I think they're really, I've come to realize that the atheist community is very, very good and very, very supportive. And it's probably because of necessity. We're probably not as good as church and religious people as far as getting together in community over atheism, because atheism to us, I guess, is more of the default position. It's everybody else that's making an extraordinary claim. An atheist isn't making any other claim other than don't believe there's a God. That's it. And within that veil, boy, there is a lot of wiggle room. So, but DY Interior says, enjoyed my video. I think he was referring to my deconversion story, which I'll leave a card above my head. It is still my most watched video of my deconversion story, and I'll leave a link to that above my head. It's interesting to hear the exact thing in each person that has the power to undo someone's faith, or rather their delusion. Congratulations on your new life. I hope you find some peace and things get better. It did for me once I lost my faith. It took a couple years for me to recover to the place where I am now. I'm once again happy and free. I love my life now, and I'm stronger than I ever was as a believer. I want to thank DY Interiors for this comment. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the understanding. Yeah, it is a new life. I think the greatest challenge of this new life is readjusting how you think about things. And, and that's part of what's with the rest of the comment video. I didn't really have any other comments, but I did. The comment I'm about to address is actually from one of my YouTube friends, or not from my YouTube friends, but from my Facebook friends. And I have a pretty broad spectrum when it comes to faith, belief, and politics in my Facebook friends. I think it's because I like to hear opposing views, and I don't get all bent out of shape because my friends hold some different view than I do. So I kind of go, yeah, so what? I'm more interested in caring about people and supporting people and being good friends to them. And I also realize that nobody's going to have the exact same views on everything that I am. And maybe people just need to understand that more. So I don't have a problem with Christians expressing their Christian opinion on things. And the comment I'm about to read, I'm not picking on this person. I'm not even going to mention who their name is for reasons. Just because I think most of my Christian friends might have made a similar statement like this or might have said something like this. So this comment is more about addressing COVID-19 and whether or not COVID-19 is an act of God. Is God doing this for a purpose? But here's the comment. In 3 short months, just like he did with the plagues of Egypt, God has taken away everything we worship. God said, you want to worship athletes, I'll shut down your stadiums. You want to worship musicians, I'll shut down your civic centers. You want to worship actors, I'll shut down the theaters. You want to worship money, I will shut down your economy and collapse the stock market. You don't want to go to church and worship me, I will make it where you can't go to church. Now, that one I'm going to address in a minute because that one makes the least amount of sense. And then she quotes the verse, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will heal from heaven and forgive their sin and will heal their land. Maybe we don't need a vaccine. Maybe we need to take time from isolation from the distraction of the world and have a personal revival where we focus on the only thing in the world that really matters, Jesus. If you believe this, copy and share. Start a revival in your home. Spread the love of Jesus. Now, this is why I'm not quoting this person with this comment. I don't know where this comment actually came from. I think they are copying and paste something. And it's something that a lot of my Christian friends would have done, but I'm going to break it down here. In 3 short months, just like he said with the plagues of Egypt, God has taken everything we worship. Okay. I get why many Christians would say that God needs to take away all the stuff that we worship, but there's an assumption behind that these things are things that we worship. As an atheist, I don't worship shit. I don't worship anything. I don't worship man. There's nothing to worship to me. To me, worship has got to be the most ridiculous concept there is. I don't even hero worship. Okay, I look at every human being as failed and flawed in the sense that they're fallible. They have weaknesses. We're not omnipotent. We're not all the omnis. Okay, and because of that, we're going to be ignorant at times, and we're going to lack the power we need, and we're going to have. But if we're going to say that, but the insinuation here is that God is behind COVID-19. Now, I'm going to tell you a couple of things. COVID-19 is just the virus that we currently focus on. There's a ton of these things going through the world right now, killing people. Viruses have been around for a long, long time, and they have learned to adapt, overcome. I mean, if you were to break down the family tree of viruses and bacteria, each one of those would be this huge family tree with its own families, genuses, species, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's easy for us to wave our hand and say viruses and bacteria, but that is a very complex subject that I don't have enough time left in my life to fully understand. Okay, there are people that dedicate themselves to certain aspects of viruses that they do understand, and that's just straight up the truth. So you have this idea that God brought this about. I'm like, well, God is pretty indiscriminate then, because he's not really doing anything with a stated purpose. It seems like if this was true, God would have come out and say, hey, I'm going to give you a virus to do all this and shut this stuff down. I'm not going to give God credit for doing what basically political leaders and media leaders have done, which is create a lot of fear, which they have capitalized on, and used it to shut down a lot of events. These are not things that we worship. You want to worship athletes. I don't worship athletes. I like athletic competition. I like to watch human beings in competition with each other because then it causes us to raise our level of our humanness. It causes us to be better people overall. People worked in those stadiums. So what you're basically telling me, in order for God, who apparently is so vain about people worshiping himself and everybody, he's got to have people up his ass all the time, or he doesn't feel, he doesn't feel like people are paying him the proper attention. He's going to shut down stadiums, effectively putting a lot of professional athletes out of work, putting a lot of people that work in those stadiums out of work, causing massive unemployment issues. God has to cause all these unemployment issues and cause a lot of economic suffering in order to get our attention because he's too vain about himself and needing to have attention all the time. That sounds like something a child would do. You guys aren't letting me create the rules, so therefore I'm going to take my ball and go home. That's not the actions of a mature individual. It's the actions of somebody who's a narcissist. You want to worship musicians, I'll shut down your civic. I don't worship musicians. I enjoy musicians because I love music, because it ministers to me, if you will, to who I am as a human being. It talks about life, it talks about love, disappointment, depression, all the human experiences. This isn't worship. This is learning to identify with another group of people. You want to worship actors, I'll shut down the theaters. I hate to break the news to you, but all these actors have just shifted to Netflix or anything that's online. You can always get entertained by shows, no matter what you are. I mean, if God was trying to shut down actors from acting and people watching, it's an abysmal failure, because almost everything is watched online. I can literally right now, if I wanted to, go get some other thing and watch it right now. I don't have to go to the theater. In fact, a lot of the movies that were supposed to be released in the theater are going to be released early on a lot of these other platforms so people can watch them at home. You want to worship money. Once again, money is not something to worship, nor is it something great. But here's the point. By COVID-19 doing what it does, you have literally caused economic misery to the poorest among us, somebody who God is supposed to be concerned about. Okay, the rich people aren't going to be affected by this. They're going to stay home, enjoy their riches, sip their wine, and wait till it's over. Middle class, pretty much the same. The people that are still working, same. It's the people who suddenly find them unemployed or find themselves on the business end of not being able to do the thing are the ones that are going to be hurt by the most. And you want to give God the credit for that? You want God to get the credit? Okay. I mean, from my perspective, if this is the biblical God doing it, it's just one more example of how that biblical God is an asshole, because he's literally hurting the poor and people that work for a living, not other people. He's not hurting the rich. He's not hurting the religious. He's not hurting anybody but the people that really don't need to be hurt right now. Shut down the economy and collapse well, first of all, the economy isn't shut down. It's just been minimized. And as far as the stock market goes, I want to let you know something about that. People are sitting there, well, who cares? Retirees have a lot invested in the stock market because over the long haul, the stock market is a very stable thing. And as long as people don't screw with it, it usually does a really good job as providing for people's retirement so they don't have to struggle in their old age. And so God is going to collapse that. So now old people have to struggle economically in their old age. Yeah, that's a real nice thing to do, God. Thanks. I don't know. I find these statements now to be woefully ignorant of how the real world works. And it really pisses me off anymore that people will say this stuff with some sort of air of moral superiority. Do you not realize the kind of picture you're giving of your God? That this act of God is basically causing a whole bunch of misery to people whose lives are already, in many cases, miserable, or the very people that COVID is attacking. Do you realize that this virus in particular attacks people who are vulnerable and elderly. I want you to sit that, and then you want to tell me that God is the one who caused this, that God is the one that brought COVID-19. And you're going to say that he's doing it when the people that it affects are the economically disadvantaged, the working class that now are not working but are unemployed, the elderly, and people with pre-existent conditions that make them susceptible to dying. This isn't hitting people because of their moral state. It's hitting people because of their immune state and the fact that economically they're in a disadvantaged position. If this is an act of God, it is one of the most evil acts of God that I've seen in a long time. This is why I'm an atheist. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to tell people that God, to me, that's just an evil statement. I'm not trying to be rude here, but this just irritates the snot out of me now. Would you please think about the implications of what you're saying? So God wants to hurt the poor. God wants to hurt retirees in their retirement. God wants to take away all the things that we enjoy in life as human beings. Yeah, well, he's kind of a killjoy. God is so frickin' egotistical that he can't have anybody else get the attention but himself. Talk about a child. If that's God, he is a flippin' 5-year-old. Okay, I'm sorry. This kind of stuff, you look at it and you can take it apart logically easily. It's garbage. Okay, you do need a vaccine. COVID-19 will not be solved by God or some sort of supernatural healing power. Some scientists in a lab will figure out the vaccine, or more likely a team of scientists will figure out the vaccine. It may be too late, but the one place I'm going to put my trust in on this one is the medical community, because this is why this hasn't been as bad as everybody thought it would be, because medicine and understanding how germs work, understanding how viruses work, has enabled us as human beings to figure out the defenses that we need to minimize the damage. These suckers are always going to be around killing people. And we as human beings have figured out ways to get around apparently these acts of God. I don't think COVID-19 is an act of God. I think it's a virus. I think it just exists. It's probably, from the virus's standpoint, this has been a good couple of weeks. From a human standpoint, not so much. My point is that if you're going to say that God is the one that's doing this, then you need to really rethink your position about your God, because from my perspective at that point, if this is God's action, then he's an evil son of a bitch. Okay, and I don't have any respect for people who want to sit there and say, oh yeah, my God is so vain that he causes misery, and then we need to worship him and pat him on the back for causing misery. No, I don't think so. I mean, it also leads to another logical problem. If God's causing this, then medical people shouldn't fight it. You're fighting the will of God. But apparently we are able to fight the will of God, come up with a cure, and deal with stuff all the time. Whoa. Well, maybe God's not all that powerful. Or maybe, more likely, he just doesn't exist. Jesus isn't the only thing that matters. In fact, most of what you think about Jesus is made up in your head. If I talk to 100 Christians about what they think Jesus is really like, I'll get 100 different answers, because almost everybody has created Jesus in their own image. He's an imaginary character that everybody imagines differently. So no, I don't think I need a personal revival. What I think I do need to do is banish the idea that God caused this. Because if God did cause this, then he's hurting the innocent and the poor more than anybody else. And quite frankly, I don't find that good. If God's responsible for COVID-19, he's an evil bastard. Okay, and we shouldn't worship him. Once again, I want to thank you. Welcome to my channel. As you can see, comments have a way of influencing and determining the content of Friday's videos, and I will respond to them when I can, and usually by this platform of the Friday video. You also can ask me any direct question anytime if you're looking to understand something, or you can make a suggestion of what you'd like me to see me to do. Videos will be dropped Monday, Wednesday, and Friday-ish. Sometimes I have to do things different. Like this last week, I had to drop Wednesday's video on Thursday. I don't tolerate name calling. Demonstrate people are fools, don't call them fools. That's kind of my basic way of putting that. Be sure to like, subscribe, and get your notifications. Hopefully, I can someday convince you to be a rabid atheist like myself. In the meantime, this is Ed Rabyd, the Rabid Atheist, signing off and wishing you a good day and saying goodbye.